We all know about uterine myoma that it is present in 20 to 40% in reproductive age group of women and about up to 10% in infertile women. If you have a submucous myoma, it can reduce IVF success rate by almost 70%. And if you have intramural myoma, it can reduce IVF success by about 30%. But the subserial myoma does not have any effect. We must classify the fibroids according to location or according to the uterine layer involved, like submucous, intramural, and subserous. You can make use of FIGO leiomyoma classification, which is one of the best classifications that I have seen as regards site of myoma. When it comes to imaging of fibroids, the techniques that we use are transabdominal, transvaginal, and even transrectal ultrasound, saline infusion sonography, 3D, 4D ultrasound, 3D part Doppler, CT, and MRI. Fibromyomas are regular, irregularly enlarged uterus, distorted endometrium lining when they are going towards endometrium, single or multiple rounded or oblong, decreased echogenicity. You must look at all the sites, whether there is any degeneration or not, whether it is calcified or not, and visualize the ovaries to differentiate fibromas, especially pedunculated, from the ovary. When higher frequency ultrasound passes through fibroid, it does get attenuated. It is a mass which is not separable from the uterus unless it is pedunculated. Internal texture of fibromyoma shows you homogeneous and coarse material in absence of degeneration. Always do transabdominal sonography if you have a broad ligament fibroid or a very huge fibroid to see back pressure changes on ureter and kidneys. When it comes to submucous fibroids, you all know about ESG classification: type 0, no intramural extension. It is totally inside the uterine cavity. Type 1, less than 50% intramural extension, and type 2, more than 50% intramural extension. Type surgery you would like to do in future when this patient is taken up. Again, the 3D ultrasound shows you the picture on the left, totally inside the uterine cavity, more than 50% in the endometrial cavity, and the one on the right shows you less than 50% in the endometrial cavity. Why it is important? Because you will decide whether you will go for single sitting or double sitting, whether you will go for hysteroscopic or laparoscopic removal, and the extension in uterine cavity in centimeters to decide the route of surgery is very important. So now it is very important that you must do mapping of the uterus before you take her up for any surgery, any route. For planning surgery and route of surgery, monitor magnetic resonance imaging, image guided focus ultrasound for surgical ablation of the fibroids. Serial monitoring is required with ultrasound for one number baseline, immediately after treatment, and 6 months follow-up. You must do exact localization on mapping, whether it is anterior wall, posterior wall, right lateral, left lateral, lower segment, cervical, broad ligament, fundal, etc., etc. Accurate measurement of the size, you can use 3 dimensions and even 3D for that matter. The characteristics, whether there are degenerative changes or not, and put on always color to rule out malignancy. This is an anterior wall fibroid in a retroverted uterus on transvaginal sonography. This is a posterior wall fibroid near the fundus on transvaginal sonography in anteverted uterus. This is a cervical fibroid. You put on Par Doppler, you can see the typical peripheral circulation in cervical fibroid. Fibroid going beyond 6 centimeter in size may show you the cystic degeneration or different types of degeneration. It's a very good demonstration on ultrasound of submucous fibroid, almost 50% inside the uterine cavity, and the one specimen which you can see here, the submucous fibroid. Again, it's a submucous fibroid on saline infusion sonography. Always do saline infusion sonography to confirm whether it is submucous fibroid or not. You can see here so beautifully the submucous fibroid in this particular case. Now here you have multiple fibroids. So when you're doing surgery, you can do tunneling and remove each and every fibroid once you know where exactly how many fibroids are there in which wall. This is a huge anterior wall subserous fibroid, intramural becoming subserous. You can see the endometrial cavity, the posterior wall, and this the huge subserous fibroid is seen in the mid of the uterus. Mapping should be always done to exclude leiomyosarcoma. As we all know, the recent thing that we have experienced, that in-bag morcellation should be done in all these cases. The incidence is 0.2%. Mapping is done by dynamic MRI. What do you find? Mass with focally infiltrative margins, sharply marginated mass with low signal intensity, and hemorrhagic foci necrosis and absence of calcification on MRI is a history of leiomyosarcoma. These are the few of the pictures of fibroid. That's a fibroid. That is one more fibroid, and the same thing. See, this is the entry wall fibroid, and that's a posterior wall fibroid. This is leiomyosarcoma that you can see. You always use the Par Doppler to confirm. Now, when you compare ultrasound with MRI, ultrasound is accessible anytime, anywhere. It's low cost, whereas MRI is not operator dependent, better for small fibroids and better for reproducibility. We all know that we can always use the ultrasound guided magnetic resonance imaging for high intensity focus ultrasound management of the fibroid. Coming to adenomyosis, which is endometriosis interna, what are the ultrasound features? Asymmetrical myometrial thickening, more on posterior wall, globular shape of the uterus, ill-defined endometrial myometrial junction, linear striations, myometrial cysts, hyperechoic nodules inside the myometrium, and increased junctional zone thickness on 3D ultrasound more than 8 millimeter. As you can see here, a huge adenomyotic nodule is seen here. All linear striations are seen. That is the anterior wall, which is quite small. This is the endometrial cavity. And look at the huge posterior wall where you have the adenomyosis. On ultrasound, you have differentiation between adenomyosis and fibroid. That you can see diffuse uterine enlargement in adenomyosis, whereas irregular or regular uterine enlargement in fibroid. Poorly defined margins, distinct margins, myometrial inhomogeneity, salt and pepper appearance, as we call it in adenomyosis, no myometrial inhomogeneity. Subendometrial or intramural cysts are seen, cysts are not seen except for degeneration. It is always hyperechoic. This is either iso, hypo, or hyperechoic. Sticky shadowing is seen when the ultrasound passes through adenomyosis. There is a distal shadowing from the posterior wall. No calcification possible. Minimal mass effect on serota and endometrium, with a significant mass effect in cases of fibroid. You can see beautifully the endomyometrial junction on 3D ultrasound and 2D ultrasound, and you have to look for whether it is infiltrated by the adenomyosis or not. The fibroid never infiltrates the endomyometrial junction. When you use color Doppler, the adenomyosis will show you central vessels perpendicular to the endometrial lining, and it is diffused vascularity, whereas the fibroid will show you peripheral vessels and peripheral flow. As you can see, these are all the adenomyotic changes and showing color Doppler, diffuse, whereas the fibroid, we all know, coming from the periphery, the vessels. The same thing on 3D ultrasound with Par Doppler. You can see the fibroid and you can see the diffuse echogenicity in adenomyosis and the color. Endomyometrium junction is penetrated by this white endometrium going into the myometrium on 3D ultrasound, beautifully in coronal section. And you can see it on 3D ultrasound, the fibroids are used, intramural fibroids becoming subserous as well as submucous, more of intramyometrial fibroid. Again, a nice fibroid seen here on 3D ultrasound. You can see beautifully, not much indenting onto the uterine cavity. That's again intramural fibroid, beautifully seen. This is a broad ligament fibroid where you have totally separate uterus, and you should know this very well and also look for kidney and ureter. Then there is something called as a contrast enhanced ultrasonography that can be used to diagnose either fibroid or adenomyosis. Always rule out fibroid polyp or rather the mucus polyp which are there. It's a differential diagnosis from the submucous fibroid. Endometrial polyps can be seen beautifully like this on 3D ultrasound. So when you do reporting for a fibroid, you must write whether it is there or not. Many times clinically, you feel there is a fibroid and ultrasound will not show you. What is the location, number, size, medical or not, or sessile, echogenicity, calcification, vascularity, etc. Coming to endometriosis, you must try and find out whether it is ovarian or extra ovarian. And in extra ovarian, whether it is intestinal, bladder, ureter, uterosectal, rectovaginal, or it is uterine, that is adenomyosis, which you already talked about. Whether it is involving one ovary or both the ovaries, what is the size, whether sliding sign is present or not, is it ovarian or extra ovarian, what is the grade, differential diagnosis, and need for whether neurosurgeon will be required or general surgeon will be required, or you will be able to manage, like all the stalwarts that are sitting right now in front of me, they don't need anyone. This is the same thing why I talked about.
Doctor,
Ovarian endometriomas, sorry?
Doctor, sorry to interrupt. We have 3 minutes remaining.
Done. Endometriomas are common, can mimic other head and axil masses. They result from cyclic hemorrhage. Walls are thick and fibrotic contents consist of thick, dark, degenerated blood products we call as chocolate cysts. If unilateral, it is more common on the left side. If bilateral is present, it is almost in 50% of cases. And usually it regresses after menopause. It's a very typical picture of chocolate cyst, and this is septated chocolate cyst. You can have a hyperechoic wall like this because of deposition of cholesterol. Kissing ovaries, the negative sliding sign is there when you have a kissing ovaries, that there is no movement on applying gentle pressure with a transvaginal probe. And these are the kissing ovaries, and they usually have adhesions between themselves. What are the endometrioma rule? That the single best discriminator between endometrium and other cysts of the ovary is the ground glass. What you saw just now, ground glass echogenicity of cyst sensitivity 73% and specificity almost 85%. You can have malignant change even in endometrioma in 0.3 to 0.8% of women, typically in women more than 45 years of age. And you should put on color and if required 3D ultrasound, and you'll be able to diagnose malignancy even in endometriosis. International Deep Endometriosis Analysis Idea Group said that you must see the uterus, the head nexa, pouch of Douglas, entry wall of the rectum, etc. Now, this cannot be picked up by ultrasound. You have to use laparoscopy, uterovesical fold, the subtle endometriosis. And even in pouch of Douglas, you have to use laparoscopy. What is deep infiltrating endometriosis? What we call as DIE. Its definition is infiltration of endometric nodule more than 5 millimeters. What are the locations? Rectosigmoid, uterosacral ligament, rectovaginal, septum, vagina, and bladder. These are the areas where you have a deep infiltrating endometriosis. These are the uterosacrals that can be involved. You can have a bowel nodule. Histologically, definition is the presence of endometriotic nodule and the stroma in the bowel reaching at least the muscularis propria. Involves anterior rectum, rectosigmoid junction, and or sigmoid colon. Typically hypoechoic or isoechoic solid masses with irregular outer margins, and they are tender on palpation. And these are all the pictures of typical involvement of the large intestine that you can see here. Bladder lesion, hyporisoechoic nodules within the bladder base, close to the ureteral ostia or the bladder dome, and they are nodular or coma shaped, as you can see here, like a coma. Or you can have a huge cystic structure. Small internal anechoic cystic areas are seen in approximately 30%. Then you must examine the ureters. As you can see here, the ureters can be traced right up to the kidneys. Why is it important to diagnose bladder endometriosis? Bladder endometriosis mimics recurrent cystitis, dysuria, urgency, frequency, suprapubic pain, and incontinence. There might be macroscopic hematuria, relatively rare, occurrence in 1 to 4% of women with laparoscopic diagnosis of endometriosis, and the diagnosis is often delayed or not even diagnosed in many cases. Coming to last part of my talk, and that is a deep infiltrating endometriosis below the level of the cervix, behind the cervix in pouch of Douglas and anterior to the rectal wall. You can see here on the left uterosacral ligament, a huge nodule sitting here on ultrasound. This is a deep infiltrating endomyoma, endometriosis which is seen. Rectal sonography, which has a 360 degrees picture, is very good for pick up this. This is the mass between the anterior rectal wall and the posterior vaginal wall, and you can't miss this. You know exactly where this mass is, and accordingly, you can go for laparoscopic surgery. Then you can have in pouch of Douglas this deep infiltrating, and you know how much deep it is going, so that you can restrict yourself while doing laparoscopic surgery. Very nicely seen the deep infiltrating endometriosis behind the uterus and in the pouch of Douglas and going down in between the anterior rectal wall and the posterior vaginal wall. Flimsy adhesions have fluid entered within them known as flapping cell sign. Flapping cell sign. The question mark sign on the fundus of the uterus is pulled by adhesions. The uterus is fixed, especially when you have bilateral or kissing. You can do staging with the help of this. To end my talk, ladies and gentlemen, what is the take-home message? That the transvaginal ultrasound is very accurate. You can use 3D ultrasound and MRI if required. Fibroid mapping is a must in cases of fibroid, and you must rule out leiomyosarcoma every time you do ultrasound. Severity of symptoms does not with the extension of disease. Identifying an endometrioma is likely that there is further signs of pelvic endometriosis. Unless you have ovarian endometrioma, it is less likely that you will have extra ovarian endometriosis. Kissing ovaries are associated with extensive pelvic adhesion. Adenomyosis is usually underreported, and assessment of pelvic mobility can indicate adhesions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for patient hearing.